Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to be doing the impossible task of ranking every single MCU movie from worst to best. And I thought it is about time to revisit this video and do an updated version because all of the 2021 MCU movies have all passed, and to be honest, my opinion has changed with some movies. And of course, standard disclaimer, this is just my personal useless nerd opinion. If you agree or disagree, or if you want to be truly awesome, man, let us know your list or where you'd place certain movies. Please let me know down below. And of course, if you're new to the channel about the nerd life, we post nerd content on the daily. Kill the sub button, kill the bell. I think that's everything. Let's start off with the list. And we are starting with The Incredible Hulk. This has actually not changed for so many years. Like, I genuinely don't think, and I pray to all the gods that there never will be, a movie in the MCU that is this bad. This is actually the only MCU movie that I do not like. I have never liked this movie. Score-wise, probably like a 4 out of 10, maybe a 3.5. I know I give it a lot of crap, this movie, because it just doesn't feel like the MCU. The Hulk doesn't look right. His fight with the Abomination is okay, but everything else, man, it just feels boring and dead. And I know a lot of people say, like, oh, it's because you can't do a Hulk movie. I disagree. I just think the movie is kind of rubbish. Next up is Thor: The Dark World. I remember when I first saw this movie, a lot of people at the time said, like, Thor is boring, man. And this is kind of the reason. This movie is kind of really boring, man. The villains, I'm about the villain life. In here, Malekith, get in a bin, mate. So boring, so dead, zero personality. You just don't care about him. You don't care about the plot. They gloss over Thor's mum's death like she was nothing, which is just insulting. And my biggest gripe with this movie, there is so much comedy and it just needs to stop, man. Like, it has good moments with Mjolnir, good little Loki bits, but overall, this movie is very weak. If I'm being fair, grading wise, it's probably a 5 out of 10, dead average. Next up is Ant-Man and the Wasp. This actually came down a few levels from my last ranking. I still can't get into this movie. I think it's on the same level as Thor: The Dark World. I just think the humour and the visual stuff is a little bit better. Ghost as a villain, dead, mate. Some of the story beats, dead. I like the chemistry between Ant-Man and the Wasp, but it's not enough to say this movie's great. Again, it's dead average. I try my best not to see these like last 3 films too much, or to be fair, The Incredible Hulk, I try never to see it. Again, for me, this is an average movie. It's alright. Next up is Captain Marvel. However, don't get twisted, on a grading scale, this is for me a 5.5 out of 10. It's a little bit better than average. I think the action is actually pretty sick. The visuals are very good. I like Captain Marvel from the comics. I do think this is a very weak origin movie. They could have done her so much better. I am looking forward to Captain Marvel 2, or the Captains, the Marvels, whatever they're called, man. They keep changing the title. I'm looking forward to the second film. Hopefully it's good. I do like Nick Fury in the movie. His de-aging, like the tech they use is unbelievable. The visuals are very good. The villain, hella weak. I think if it had a better villain at least, could maybe be a 6, but for now, it's a 5.5. Next up is The Eternals. This was the one that a lot of people are properly divided on, man. Some people think it is like the worst thing ever. And some people genuinely think it's like the greatest MCU movie ever. There's so much in here that is so dumb. I don't like how they've like forced this introduction of the Eternals, how they've been living on Earth for like centuries. I can't stand when movies do that. Because then you start thinking like, where were you with Loki? Where were you with Ultron? Where were you with anything? Where were you with Thanos, bruv? You done nothing. They try to explain it in the movie. For me, I said it in my review, it does not work. It is so dumb and so dead. I actually really liked the characters. I thought the visuals and the action was actually really good. It's just some massive plot beats did not work. And I hope, please, they make, if they ever do make an Eternals 2, it'd be a big push, that they just make it better, man. Tone it down, calm down a little bit. They tried to like make some crazy kind of like Endgame movie in this. As a first movie, you introduce like 10 new characters. You need to relax a little bit. I feel like I'm crapping on this movie. Next up is Black Widow. After years and years of screaming at Marvel to just give Black Widow her own movie, they finally do, and the story's actually pretty good. The characters are pretty good, but you just don't really care. Mainly because we know she's got the chop, bro, in Endgame. And you're doing a prequel? Man, this movie should have come out genuinely like 3 or 4 years ago. It would have been an absolute banger, like the Black Widow, Winter Soldier kind of spy thing. It would have been amazing. There is good things in this movie, and Yelena, man, she is an awesome character in the MCU, Black Widow's sister. Just, this film has a lot of good stuff. It just doesn't really go to good heights of it. Also,
Taskmaster is so bad.
I rewatched this movie, and I said in my review that Taskmaster is one of the worst MCU villains ever. And I thought maybe I was exaggerating. Nah, I wasn't. It's that bad. Next up is Iron Man 2. This actually went up a little bit. I kind of have a guilty thing with this movie. I don't know why. Maybe in a year's time, when I redo this list, it might go up even more. Because every year I watch this movie and I'm like, it's not even that bad, yo. Whiplash is definitely a rubbish villain. His story stuff is quite good, but I still love seeing Tony Stark on the big screen, man. He just knows what he's doing. RDJ kills it as always. Iron Man's got some really good scenes when he's fighting War Machine. That is dope, man. Like, again, it suffers from the thing of there's a lot of comedy. This is the movie also that gave us Black Widow, and Nick Fury's in it as well. There's a lot of things that's good in here. They're just like not executed very good. Again, for me, if I'm being fair, this is like a 6 out of 10, man. I think it's better than average. I watch it at least twice a year, if that counts as anything. Next up is Iron Man 3. If you take out the Mandarin twist, which I thought was absolutely dead, everything else I kind of liked. I like they put Tony Stark in an environment where he ain't got all his gadgets and stuff, and he's with that kid. I like all that stuff. I think the new gold and white suit, or silver, whatever, looks really, really good. There's a lot of action scenes in here that just visually still, to this day, they hold up so, so good. And I like the scenes in the sky where he's catching people. This movie is pretty good. I know it gets a lot of hate from a lot of people. I'm just being fair. I think still, of all the movies I've said on this list, this is definitely better, only by a little bit. Next up is Ant-Man. Just so we're clear, on a rating, this is like a 6.5 out of 10. It's definitely way better than average, and I actually enjoy watching this movie quite a bit. I really like Paul Rudd, and the introduction we get into Ant-Man is really, really awesome to see. I like that this movie is very self-contained. It's very, very small. I like the high stuff. I actually think Yellow Jacket, villain-wise, he's actually pretty good, man. He's not like a standout or anything, but he does the job for an origin movie, and in terms of like a whole origin movie, this is actually pretty, pretty good, man. I would say it's way better. If you look at other origin movies on this list, like Captain Marvel, oh man, come on. This is so much better, just as an origin movie alone. Good action scenes and very, very good comedy. I'm not even the biggest fan of comedy, but still to this day, Ant-Man does make me laugh, and it's pretty good. Next up is Thor. This is a solid 7 out of 10, man. A lot of people still crap on this. I think it's great, man. Thor's introduction, I thought was really, really good. We finally get Asgard in this movie. You've got Thor, Heimdall, Loki, but even Hawkeye turns up for a little bit. Plus Jane Foster and Odin. There's so much in here. You can't deny that it's a solid movie. The opening scene with Thor and the Asgardians fighting the Frost Giants is so sick. It still holds up to this day. You feel the power of Mjolnir. There is a lot of comedy going on in this movie. I think it works, though, very well with the Thor character because he's very, very funny, man. Chris Hemsworth kills it. To be honest, they should have kept this amount of comedy in Thor 2. It probably would have made it a better movie because that one has way too much, like, fake, forced humour that just does not work. But as for Thor, I think as an origin movie, they've done a really, really good job. It just feels very MCU-like, and it just fits very, very well. There's a lot of things in here, especially things like Loki and stuff that people seem to forget. This movie is no way near as bad as what people think. For me, it's a 7. I'm sticking with it. Next up is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Just so we're clear, I gave this an 8 out of 10 after my initial review. I've seen it twice now. It's still definitely a solid 8 out of 10. I actually cannot wait to see Shang-Chi interact with like other Avengers. He is amazing in this movie. The martial arts, the story, I'm fully on board. I genuinely can't wait for future films, man. Just the power of the Ten Rings is real in this movie. You feel it. Solid introduction to a brand new character. The origin story overall is really good. However, this movie has the thing that a lot of movies on this list already ain't got, an awesome villain. Oh my god, man. Shang-Chi's dad is the villain in this, and he is amazing. Not to mention the last 40 minutes of this movie, full on fantasy, full on epic. I fully love it. Just this movie was an absolute dub of 2021, and big up Shang-Chi. I cannot wait to see you again in future films. Next up is Captain America, the First Avenger. I'll be real, this was hard between Shang-Chi. If I'm being honest, they're both 8 out of 10. They're on the same level. But for the purpose of this video, I put Captain America first because I've seen it more times. And I think, for me anyway, Red Skull is one of my favourite villains across like Marvel Comics. I think Hugo Weaving done an amazing job. We're never going to get him be Red Skull again. I was so happy to see him in Infinity War and, of course, Endgame. But Red Skull in here, he is no joke. And as an origin story, I think it's extremely solid. It is really awesome to see an older setting for Captain America. I see him like skinny and just weak as hell with the Winter Soldier, of course, Bucky Barnes, and he gets his powers. He stays humble. What a movie, man. I still always watch this every single year. I always enjoy it. There's not much I dislike about this movie. Again, I think it's the same level as Shang-Chi. It'd be interesting to see like in a year's time if I put Shang-Chi above Captain America First Avenger. But for now, it is what it is.
You are deluded, Captain. You pretend to be a simple soldier, but in reality, you are just afraid to admit that we have left humanity behind.
Next up is Spider-Man Homecoming. Now that I think about it, these three films, they're all 8 out of 10. They're probably genuinely on the same level, and they could be like shift around like any day of the week. I've said so many times, I love seeing Tom Holland as Spider-Man. The story on here feels like a real high school movie thing. He's dealing with so many things. He's dealing with the fact that he is Spider-Man. He's fought in Civil War in Germany. You got the Vulture, who is actually really good, man. The car scene, everyone talks about it. The acting is on another level, so eerie. And of course, you have Tony Stark, Iron Man, in the movie as well. A lot of people don't actually like this movie. They think it's a weak Spider-Man movie, but I personally think, again, it's 8 out of 10. Every time I watch it, the things I dislike, they're so minimal. And I'm very glad it doesn't go with a traditional, like, Spider-Man story that we've seen from either Tobey's movies or Andrew's movie. It does its own thing in high school, and it feels very high school. I also really like Ned and Peter when they're on screen together. There's not much MJ in this movie, but those two, man, they're awesome. I really like this movie.
They're friends. Yeah, like Coach Wilson and Captain America are friends.
I've met him. Yeah.
Next up is Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Just the opening alone is awesome, man. Baby Groot dancing. There's so many awesome visuals, genuine humour that I actually really genuinely laugh to. Again, I'm not a fan of comedy. So many character moments are in this movie. I always watch this movie every single year. I do think it's a massive step down from the first Guardians movie. And I actually think it's because of the villain, man. I'm not a big fan of Hugo, the planet, and all this. I've never been a fan of that. I didn't really enjoy it in here. I like Star-Lord and his like interaction and stuff, but by the end, the villain fight, I didn't really like it, man. But then we get the Yondu scene. Oh, nah, man. I'm still not over that. I think a lot of people ain't. This movie is funny, it has good action, it has heart, it's emotional. It's pretty solid. I just wish it had a better villain.
I'm sorry I didn't do none of it right. I'm damn lucky you're my boy.
Next up is Spider-Man Far From Home. I like seeing Spider-Man out of New York City. It's something we have not seen on the big screen. I love MJ in this movie. The interactions between her, Peter and Ned, they work. This little Trinity thing they have going on, awesome to see. I love Nick Fury. It's very funny, but the standout, Mysterio, big up yourself. Jake Gyllenhaal's acting is genuinely amazing, and we see it in this movie, y'all. Not to mention, Mysterio vs. Spider-Man is some of the most trippy stuff you've ever seen in MCU, and I think, like, if you do maybe like a tier list of action scenes, this would be maybe in like the top at least 10, maybe even the top 5. Visually, that scene alone is god tier. You also see Peter make some proper dumb mistakes. Obviously, he's growing as a character. You love to see it. I love the ending in London. Just everything about this movie is really solid. I see people don't like this still. I don't get why, man. It's awesome, mate. For me, it's an 8.5 out of 10.
If you were good enough, maybe Tony would still be alive.
Next up is Avengers Age of Ultron. This gets a lot of crap from a lot of people as well because they just don't like things. I think the interactions between the Avengers, this is absolutely solid. When we first saw them, they're trying to lift up Thor's hammer, all the jokes and stuff, you can tell they're like off screen, they're all friends with each other, man. They must be. It doesn't even feel scripted, some of the moments of dialogue. We get Quicksilver for a little bit, but we get Scarlet Witch, one of my favourite characters now in the MCU. She's very OP in here. And of course, we get Ultron, and villain I think is extremely underrated and underappreciated. Sure, I get it's like an army of like robots, but if you actually watch the movie and see what he's doing, he's pretty evil, man. And I just think the ending works really, really well as well. Not to mention Hulk vs Hulkbuster. This has a lot of scenes that you're going to remember for a long, long time. That's why I think this is definitely better than everything else on this list so far. Avengers Age of Ultron, big up.
Go to sleep, go to sleep.
Next up is Doctor Strange. Just so you know, we're at 9 out of 10. We're not playing games now. I've said many times on the channel, MCU-wise, Doctor Strange is my favourite character right now. I think Benedict Cumberbatch has killed the role. It's standout. It's one of those roles now that no one else can ever do. As an origin story, it's got heart, it's got soul, it's got emotional layers, which I do appreciate. It's got so many amazing characters, man. Mordo is a big deal in the comic books, and he is awesome to see in here. Caecilius, man, he does not get enough respect for what he does in this movie, and not to mention Dormammu. Come on. One of my favourite villains across all of Marvel Comics, man. Hopefully we get more Dormammu, maybe in the Multiverse of Madness. Please. And the way they beat him is unlike anything else in the MCU, because they make it clear, crystal clear at the start, you can't beat him. My guy rules a dimension. Not a planet, mate, not a universe. He is the ruler of a dimension. It is no joke. He starts coming to Earth and they have to do this craziness to win. I love it. I love seeing it. It's very trippy. It's very awesome. Big up. Also, I forgot to mention the Ancient One. There's a lot of people in this movie. Doctor Strange, sick.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
Next up is Iron Man. The OG movie that started it all with the amazing RDJ as Tony Stark and Iron Man. I don't know what to say. Everything's been said about this movie. It's the perfect blueprint for like an origin movie. You don't really like him at the start. You love him by the end. The villain is alright for the movies, basically like an anti-Iron Man, like a big Hulk version of him. But that aside, I think everything else is actually flawless. Again, this is a 9 out of 10 for me. It's actually probably on par with Doctor Strange. That's just my opinion because I love Doctor Strange so much. But this, man, started it off. It holds up as well to this day. So many badass moments. Without Iron Man, we would have nothing. If you think of it like that, it's kind of crazy. This movie needs respect forever. Next up is Black Panther. We saw him in Civil War, but now we get his like proper, not really origin, because he's already Black Panther. And I love that the MCU, Marvel, they do that. They've done it with Black Panther, of course. They've done it with Spider-Man. Just skip the origin, man. Just give us a good story. We know what's going on. And the story in here with Killmonger, oh man, I said bare times. I think Killmonger, still to this day, is like the second best villain across all of the MCU. Because you feel for him, you believe him. It's a very emotional story. Great acting, great action. Also, Gollum's in the movie with his dodgy arm. I think Wakanda looks amazing. I love Shuri, man. She brings so much like comedy to the role. It's going to be really difficult to see a second movie without Chadwick Boseman, man. I hope you're resting in peace, my guy, the legend, the king. This movie is amazing. One of the best in the MCU. Next up is Guardians of the Galaxy. I'ma be real, everything from now to the top is 10 out of 10. It's God tier. I don't care, it's my list. I'm still blown away with how good this movie is. It should not work, man. You got Chris Pratt, who at the time, if I'm being honest, I didn't even know who this guy was. He's so good in this role. God tier in the role. So funny, so much action. I love seeing space. The first time we see it properly in the MCU. You got Green Assassin, a talking tree, and a talking raccoon. This should not work, man. But it does. The chemistry is so good. The action's good. The villain, Ronin, I think he's a little bit underrated, man. I think he's pretty good for the role in this movie. It sets up the Power Stone. There's so much in here that works. And I'm gonna be fair, 100% of all the comedy stuff, I think works, man. This is one of the only movies, maybe it's James Gunn, I'm not sure, but this is one of the only ones that works comedy-wise. It's flawless. The tone is amazing. This movie is a 10 out of 10. I love it.
I live for the simple things. Like how much this is gonna hurt.
Next up is the Avengers. I still remember the day I went to the cinema with all my bros and we saw this for the first time, and you just did not expect. You're seeing Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye, see all these characters on the screen at the same time. Crazy. And Thor. Forgot about you, my guy. At the time I saw this, this had never been done. I'm never going to forget seeing this, man. It's so much nostalgia. I always watch this movie. Loki's great. The comedy's good. The action is amazing. I love that the Avengers, they don't just team up and they're all best buds. They fight with each other. Man, this movie has everything. Again, it's God tier. I watched this multiple times every single year. It still holds up to this day. So many awesome action scenes. This, it has everything. Next up is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. For the longest time, this generally was the best movie, for me anyway, and for a lot of people I personally know, they will still say this is the best MCU movie, and I can see why, man. It is not only an amazing Marvel movie, you've got the Marvel characters, of course. Winter Soldier is so good, Captain America, Black Widow, but it's a spy movie, and I think that thing of the spy movie is actually really, really good. So overall, this movie just works amazing. Russo brothers came in and they turned Captain America, who's arguably the weakest Avenger in terms of like maybe popularity at the time. He was awesome in Avengers, but he wasn't like standout. They took him and they made him God tier. I'm so glad they done Civil War and Infinity War and Endgame, because man, the directors just made this movie so, so good. It still holds up to this day. Winter Soldier is a masterpiece. Next up is Thor Ragnarok. Just like what the Russo brothers done with Captain America, man, they done it with Thor. When I first saw this movie, man, Thor was like one of my favourite MCU characters, genuinely, of all time. Just from this movie, yo. The humour in here, again, every single scene that's meant to make you laugh makes me laugh. The action is off the chains, and we're seeing planets and stuff we've never seen, not to mention Jeff Goldblum's in the movie, you got Hela, Loki, Hulk's in the movie, Valkyrie's in the movie, and even Doctor Strange.
You think you're some kind of sorcerer? Don't think for 1 minute you second rate.
Alright, bye-bye.
This has everything. There's probably characters I've just forgotten to mention. I'm going mind blank at the moment. This is amazing. I still think it's 10 out of 10. God tier. This is still easily one of the best MCU movies ever made. I don't know if they're ever going to make a Thor movie as good as this. Hopefully they do. Also, big up Hela, because I love just seeing villains who are just pure evil for the sake of being pure evil. They don't need a master plan. She is the goddess of death, and that's it. That's all you need to know. Next up is Spider-Man No Way Home. The third and final Tom Holland trilogy movie of him in high school. What a movie. What an experience. You've got all the villains from the Tobey and Andrew movies coming into this movie. The nostalgia is off the charts, but it's not just done for nostalgia's sake. It has purpose, has meaning, and it works so good. Peter, MJ, Ned, again, as a trinity, they are just on point in here. Zendaya's acting, unbelievable. Even Tom Holland's acting, man. The man needs respect on his name. He blasted it in this movie. Aunt May, Happy, Green Goblin. Oh man, one of the best now MCU villains of all time. William Dafoe's acting, hella creepy. Not to mention, you got Doctor Strange, again, who I absolutely love and adore. The story in here works so good, and by the ending, you're going to be tearing up. Spider-Man No Way Home is genuinely an epic and one of my favourite Spider-Man movies and MCU movies of all time. Next up is Captain America Civil War. Just like Avengers, when I went to see this in the theatre, I was blown away, yo. So many characters, dealing with so many things. You've seen the Avengers like properly fight each other. They're not messing around. I can't even list all the characters because there's so many, but the standouts of the new ones, we get Spider-Man for the first time. He's so funny, man. Tom Holland, amazing. And we get Black Panther, hella emotional. Just this movie has everything. Emotions, action, humour, the fight scenes, the ending. And it's quite a long movie as well. Does not feel long. We all knew Russo brothers were amazing from Winter Soldier, but this is the one that solidified them as being juggernauts in the directing industry. And obviously Marvel saw this and were like, yo, do us a favour? Can you direct the next biggest films ever made? The Captain America trilogy is probably one of the best trilogies across anything ever. Genuinely, this movie is amazing.
Haven't met yet. I'm Clint.
I don't care.
Next up is Avengers Endgame. If you remember my last list I'd done like a year and a half ago at the time of this recording, this was not number 2. But I gotta be real, every single time I watch this movie, I like it more. I like that it's slow. We get time with these characters who are dealing with it. Bro, we got a 5-year gap of people getting blipped away. We want to see, or at least I want to see, how the characters are dealing with it. Show us some emotions. I love Thor. I love Hulk. I love Captain America. I love Black Widow. Everyone has dealing with things in different ways. I love seeing that. I love that, man. Tony Stark has a daughter in this. His mindset's completely changed. And Ant-Man comes back. It goes crazy. You got your time travel. You got Hawkeye being the Ronin. And not to mention the most insane final battle. I don't think any MCU movie, unless we get Galactus, mate, or maybe the X-Men, but I can't see any movie beating that final battle. Total chaos for 40 minutes solid. Thanos, the best MCU villain of all time. What a movie. Again, this has come up a few places. I always, again, rated this 10 out of 10. God tier. I think soon this could be beyond God tier, which means it'll be one of my favourite movies ever made. It's no joke. This film is a big one. And the best movie is Avengers Infinity War. For me, is beyond God tier. One of my favourite movies, not just in the MCU, just movies in general of all time. It cannot be touched. All the Avengers, Spider-Man, everyone's in this movie. They have things to do. They have action. They have humour. They have everything in this movie, man. There's so much in here that are just standout moments. Be a whole hour video going through everything. Doctor Strange versus Thanos, man. Thor coming back with Stormbreaker. Ah, just what a moment of movie history, yo. Captain America and Black Panther running together. Just, there's so much in here. This is also the movie that gave us Thanos. I ain't even spoke about him yet. Not just the greatest villain across all of the MCU, one of my favourite, and if I'm being honest, I think one of the best movie villains ever of all time. I got him tattooed on my skin. I love Thanos so much. And just, you feel for him. You get where he's coming from. He's got emotional layers. Just, there's not enough time, bro. There's not enough time to go into details. And the chances are, I'm like 99% sure that you've seen the movie, you get what I'm saying. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the list. On my list, from worst to best, across all of the MCU.
I don't feel so good.
Fully up to date. Let me know, man, your opinion. If you agree or disagree, if you want to go a step beyond again, let me know your list down below. That will be truly amazing. And it's going to be awesome when we get new movies, maybe in a year or a year and a half's time. I could revisit this list and just go through it again with you guys, man. I love making these videos, and it's awesome to see how your mind kind of changes and things go different, and you get what I'm saying. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. See you in a bit.